Hello and welcome to the Barbara Young channel. Now I'm going to be making a skirt and it's going to be the Simplicity 8650. That one. Now I've done this pattern before, but previously I've only done this version C, but actually it's not even quite that version because this one's meant to have a scalloped edge on it, and the material that I've used has basically been sort of leftover bits that have been big enough to make this skirt. A little bit shorter than what's shown here because I haven't got this scalloped edge, and it's somewhat rather heavier material that's not really designed for the skirt. I think you're meant to use more drapey types of material for this, and I was just trying to use up some material and see how the pattern went, but it was that particular one. But this time I'm going to be making more like this B version of it, and it's not going to be as long as the picture is, so hopefully the pattern that I've got, I'm going to be sizing that I'm going for, probably going to sit just above the knee, I imagine, or just that sort of length, but it has a top piece and a lining. So you've got the main skirt, which is very sort of almost see-through type material, probably a chiffon or something like that, and then the lining material underneath it. And so the lining material is shorter, so the actual skirt bit is really, I suppose, quite short, and then just the main part of the skirt comes in longer than that. So that's what I'm going to be having a go at. Now I have already got some material, and it is this for the main skirt. This is what the part you're going to see. It's got is it swifts on it, or swallows, or whatever it might be. I think it's swifts, meant to be birds on there, and the lining will be this. Again, it's that lining type of material, that very sort of smooth stuff that is terrible to sew. So I am going to have fun with this because we've got two very swishy sort of materials. Let me just open this up. We've got this, so as you can see, really sort of drapey and swishy, and this, which is the part that's going to be the actual skirt on top, which is quite sort of see-through and very swishy. But let me get them together. Easier said than done. And what we should have is something like that. Hopefully that'll work out quite well. I certainly hope so, because I got that material from actually Pound Fabrics, I think it was. So I got it in a sort of bundle lot. So it didn't cost me, I think actually when I bought it, I bought one and it was on offer, the bundle. So it was something like 30 metres of material for about £5. So that is really good going. Well, anyway, moving on. I actually have already cut out the pattern and worked out my pattern, and I'm going for pattern B, and I've gone for size 14 on the pattern. That's what I reckon is going to fit me. Now, it is virtually just 3 pieces. What you've got is the lining piece, that's the skirt lining, and you cut on the fold, so you cut 2 of these, and then you have the main skirt, which is, I'll get them together. As you can see, it's a bit longer because the main skirt is the outer piece. Again, that's cut on the fold, you've got 2 pieces, so you have a front and back main part of the skirt, a front and back lining, and then you have effectively the waistband, which is just 1 piece, which is cut 2 of for the lining and 2 of for the outer, so front and back. Now this one, the odd thing with this, I don't know if you'll be able to see my writings on there, but the grain for the material is that way on the waistband, but the grain for the lining is the other direction. I presume that's so that you get that crisscross sort of thing on the waistband so that it's going to stay more stable, so it's not going to get the stretch in there that you might have if you've got the grain going in the same direction. So pretty much it's 3 pieces, which is brilliant. So that should hopefully simplify things, but obviously with this material being so sort of slippy and drapey, it's going to be hard to get this all lined up so I can get it marked up and cut. So yeah, I think I'm going to probably have fun with doing that bit. It'll take a bit of time, but I think once it's cut out, it should be straightforward, I hope. But then of course this material isn't, you know, it's that type of stuff, so I imagine that sewing this up is going to be a nightmare. So as simple a pattern as possible is what's needed, and that's what I've got. So better get on and start marking it up, cutting it out, and seeing how it sews up. Well, everything's now cut out. The lining, which is front and back, the waistband lining piece, the main skirt front and back, which is basically exactly the same because it is literally 3 pieces, 1, 2, 3. But you just need 2 of these, 2 of these, 2 of these, and 2 of these. So you end up with 8 pieces in all. And suppose I will start getting them constructed. So first things first on the instructions is basically to put the front and back together. Now this seems quite straightforward, but I am dealing with this almost sheer material and I've no idea how this is going to sew, so I better get a bit of scrap piece and have a bit of a test, because I think it's going to be a pain in the... Another thing that I've noticed is that this lining material, where I put the pins in, the holes haven't covered up very well. It's obviously, it will if I brush it, but it does leave a bit of a hole in there where the pins have been, so I'm hoping it's not going to be a problem when I come to sew it up. Well, I suppose I'll soon find out. Well, I finally managed to get the skirt or the outer part skirt and the lining done. Basically it's just the front and the back, they're identical, so front and back are the same for both the skirt piece and the lining piece. Now I decided to French seam these 2 seams because this material is so lightweight, and sheer, as it were, in its makeup, whatever it's made of. I mean, they are, I don't know, polyesters or something like that, aren't they? And they're very sheer. So stitching these was a bit slow, and trying to get it to overcast an edge on this would be, I expect, almost impossible. So I French seamed both the skirt outer and the lining, and I've put the lining inside the skirt, because now, according to the instructions, I've got to put the lining in over the outer over the lining, and then just do a basting stitch around the edge here. So what I'm going to do is line this up, pin it, and then hand baste it, because I think it'll go better and it'll help it stay in place. Just got to get all these seams matched up and get on with that, I suppose, because I think this is going to take quite a bit of time, and what I'm doing is just basting it so that it's all in the right position for when I put the waistband on. So now that I've got the lining basted into the main skirt, that's, I don't know, it's almost there you'd say, but actually it's not, there's a lot to go yet. But you can see that it's really quite a swishy material. This is really drapey. So yeah, but at least that's, you know, basted, stitched in there. I know it's not fully in there, but it gives me an idea of how it's going to sit. Of course it can be elasticated, so, but yeah, that's coming on quite well. So what's next? So what's next is, well, the waistband. I've got to start getting this prepared. Now, according to the instructions, what I've got here is 2 waistband pieces and 2 lining pieces. And if I'm reading this right, first thing I've got to do is stitch this lining piece to the waistband piece, so they effectively act like basically like an interfacing on it, because this being so drapey and see-through, basically I've got to have something behind it, which is the facing piece. So first of all, it's putting these facing pieces together, of which, well, I imagine that I'm going to have to baste, get some thread from, I know, off this bobbin, and I'm going to have to baste stitch the whole thing down together, because if I don't, this will probably move all over the place because of the way the material is. So that's what I've got to do next, before I can even put the waistband bits together, before I can even think about putting it on the garment. That's what I've got to do, effectively line the material for the waistband. This may take some time. Well, I finally managed to get the lining, or the case, yeah, this is the casing, or as I call it, the waistband piece with the lining piece. I decided to machine baste it, put it on the sewing machine to do that basting stitch. Well, it went okay. It, because it's such a lightweight material, it just wants to gather up. You know, you can't stop it from getting this sort of crinkliness to it, because it just wants to sort of gather up into a big nasty ball of stuff. What we got there in the end. So now I can actually put these 2 pieces together and make the actual waistband, but with a little gap here at this end, so that I can put the elastic in when it comes to elasticating the waist. So basically this should be quite simple, straightforward, stitching the waistband together, and then that'll be that part done and ready to actually put the waistband onto the skirt. So my waistband is now done, but I'm not going to construct this in the manner that it says, because on the instructions it tells me that before I put the waistband on the skirt, I should fold it in half and then put another basting stitch in there. But with all this basting stitches going on, it seems to me like we're going to end up with a lot of bulk from basting stitches. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to offer this up to the skirt, to the top of it, just pin it in place, then fold this bit up and move the pins so that that holds it in place, and then stitch it once. That will give me, hopefully, enough bulk in there that I can do like an overcasting stitch, zigzag stitch on the end there, just to stop this from all fraying. Otherwise it's just going to be left open. Because see, the other way that a waistband that I would expect it to be put on is one stitch like that, then this would come up, then folded over and this turned in, so that you cover both of the raw edges, a bit like you would, well, as if this was a bias tape or something, you know, a bias edge, in that way, and it would go on in that manner. But this doesn't construct it that way. So yeah, so I'm going to just pin it on like that, then fold this up, and then move the pins, and then stitch it once, and then when I turn it up, I will then ditch stitch, so that's how it'll go on. But of course overcasting this edge so that it's not going to fray out everywhere. So another somewhat rather slightly lengthy and troublesome job, but actually it's not going to be too bad, and then pretty much there. Well, with the exception of the hemming the bottom, which actually I've got two hemmings to do. I've got the one on the actual material and one on the lining as well. So that'll be the last job. So better get this waistband sorted, because I think it's going to take a little bit longer than I want it to. Now that the waistband is on and I've actually tied up the edge, stitch along there, and it's all on there. Basically, when it's like that, stitch down, and then it's just turning the hem up, this waistband up, so it sits in its correct position. Now I was thinking about doing a ditch stitch, but that doesn't really hold that in place. So actually what I need to do is I'm going to just straighten this out, pin it, and then stitch very close to this hemline, but just down a little bit, so that holds this hem piece in position, so it makes the effectively this hem sit up, so you've got a waistband then, so it actually sits as a waistband. There's the hole for putting in the elastic, which I've yet to do. That'll be pretty much the last thing I do, putting the elastic in. But anyway, let's get on with this, finishing off this waistband properly, so it's going to sit properly in the position that I want it to. Now that I've actually properly finished the waistband, I've put that stitching along there to help keep this part up. Just needs the elastic in there. I've done a sort of like overlock, overcast, some sort of stitch there. It's not a proper overlock stitch because, well, I don't know, just wanted to get it finished, and I thought that would be good enough, and the extra stitching along there just to help keep it in place. Now with this, because it's such a flowy sort of sheen, sort of it's just such a lightweight fabric that's so hard to get to sew. You can see that in a couple of places that's tucked up a little bit, but that's not too bad. That's all right, because this is going to have elastic in it, so it's going to be drawn in and with the elastic. So really, that wasn't really much of a concern of mine. I knew it might do that, but I wasn't too worried. But generally, along that whole edge, it's come out quite well. You know, again, a little bit of tucking in there, but it's with the pattern and the way it is, that's not of concern to mine. So it should be just fine if with that little bit in there, because once you've got the elastic in and it's sort of gathered up, it should be fine. So now I just need to actually do the hem on both the skirt part and the lining. So that is literally it, just to finish it. Well, I put the elastic in. Finally, at last, I've managed to finish it. Well, this definitely took longer than I was expecting, but it is now done. This is the Simplicity 8650 skirt. Now, there we go. Got a lot of movement about it. I shall put some pictures up so you can see it's on. And this was actually quite a bit of work, more than I was expecting. Partly because of the materials that I was using. I'd never really used them before, so a lot of experience to gain from doing this, and it was definitely an experience. The thing about such materials as what you get with this chiffon type stuff is that it is just so lightweight and it moves about quite a lot. I mean, even the lining for this was actually more simple to sew than this chiffon stuff. As you can see, you know, that lining, I've hemmed up that lining. Hemming this was a nightmare. I suppose I'm thinking perhaps I didn't have to hem it, but it did fray a little bit, so it had to be hemmed, which didn't want to stay still at all. Now I did French seam both the main skirt and the lining, mainly because it was just so hard to get it to sit right. French seaming them actually seemed the easier way to do it. Then I put some elastic in around the top, so it stays up. I've done a size 14, which seems to fit just fine, and I didn't quite do the waistband exactly as it's stated in the instructions, but it seems to have come out alright. I've got the elastic in there, and I've done a bit of a ditch stitch on either side just to stop that elastic from rolling or moving about too much. So there we go, a new skirt. And it's been a lot of experience in learning new skills, especially dealing with this material. As I say, it's been very sort of moves about a lot, very difficult to work with, and as I'd never really done any work with this type of material before, it was definitely enjoyable and new. So yeah, don't be afraid to have a go at something like this. And because the pattern, because the 8650 pattern in itself, that one is actually quite a simple pattern. You've only got 3 pieces in there, 3 pattern pieces. You end up with 8 material pieces in making it, and that's it. That's all you need, and then just a lot of patience. If you use some other material, maybe something that's not quite so flowy and not quite so hard to work with, then I imagine that it'll probably come together much quicker than what this did. I did have to have a bit of a fight with it, but there we go. Another skirt with I think it's Swifts on there, Swifts or Swallows, something like that, with just a plain lining, because that lining just helps to set that that main material off. I'm liking that quite a lot. Very nice. So there we go, new skirt. Well, thank you for joining me on my video. I look forward to joining you on my next video. Thank you. Bye.